Welcome to my castle. I'm not a vampire, I'm just a guy. Your vampire is in fact in another coffin. This isn't even blood, this is blueberry juice. That's lovely. Despite my love of pints and donating blood, I am not in fact inclined to drink pints of blood. That seems kind of icky. I don't even have my Hep B vaccinations, could you imagine? So, you might remember way back in 2022, when Vampire Survivors came out and took the world by storm, with its simple and addictive loop of killing lots of people for about 30 minutes at a time. It repopularized the shoot 'em up genre and shifted it all into something new. Survivor-style games plagued the world, sucking the life out of original ideas like a terrible Dracula. And despite really loving Vampire Survivors, I didn't play any of them, nor even did I touch Vampire Survivors ever again. I'd had my fix and I had to go cold turkey, or perhaps cold wall chicken. Until recently, that was, when I got that itch again. Yes, like an addict who should know better, I found myself returning to Vampire Survivors to get my fix once more. This time with all the DLCs, and, well, it was a mess. Every item becomes its own full-screen clearing devastation, and then you have 6 more of them? The screen rapidly becomes a mess of pixels and noise every single run, and then it's over. But thankfully, I didn't have to reflect upon this long. Not because I don't have a reflection, I swear, but because the next game by Poncle is here with Vampire Crawlers. Vampire Crawlers is a dungeon crawler and a deck builder. At least one of these things gets me feverish with delight, like a fine seductive neck just beckoning me to take a bite. Ooh. It's an adaptation of Vampire Survivors, twisting and turning it from a simple 2D game into chunky polygonal dungeons. Quite literally. You're no longer engaged in a ceaseless battle to the death, or your own vampire survival, as wave upon wave of enemies encroach upon you. Instead, you amble around floors of a dungeon, running into enemies to then battle small waves of foes with the power of cards. Where previously your weapons were an inventory of relentlessly firing doodads, now they're a hand of cards. You spend mana to use a card that then whips or blasts the foes at the front. It's simple. Over time you add more cards to your deck to try and deal stronger and bigger attacks, as well as to boost your own stats. This is pretty standard for a deck builder. Start with a set of standardized cards and then have your deck grow into a machine that dispenses justice. Or pain, your choice. So, like any good game worth its salt, or wooden stakes, Vampire Crawlers takes this system and puts a neat little spin on it, as combat becomes less focused on playing a singular big card to stomp enemies with, but instead more about trying to create an elaborate combo to amplify your effects to great, well, effect. If you play cards in an ascending order of cost, each subsequent card will deal more damage. It's a fun little puzzle to try and work around mid-fight. You've only so much mana, so you'll need to plan accordingly to try and get everything you want out of what little you have. Plus, you might not draw your cards in the right order, so your delightful 0, 1, 2, 3 combo that involves a nice boost of mana from an empowered tome just doesn't manifest, and now you're left scrabbling for scraps. This hook really pulls you in like some sort of innate magical charm or hypnosis. At the start of your journey, you'll be struggling to, well, vampire survive. Trying your best to string together a simple but effective combo to get you through the constant fighting. You've only got so many moving parts and you need to work hard to get them to work. These handful of pieces begin to expand. Much like the previous game, you'll be unlocking all sorts through repeated and continuous runs. It keeps the game interesting and varied as you'll unlock a new character, so you'll want to use them to unlock further bits and pieces, and so it goes on and on. This steadily increases the amount of stuff you can use, turning the whole thing a lot more complicated as your arsenal expands. The game then shifts into the next arc as you get a handle of the systems and start aiming for a modicum of efficiency, picking items with intent and using specific powers at specific points to make the most of a combo. Your cards also have slots in them, allowing you to smash in gems that give them an extra effect when played. These start out simple, such as boosting your damage stat, and slowly get more involved and interesting, like allowing your combo to now play in decreasing order, or reducing the cost of a card into the negatives, allowing for even longer combos. The way this all scratches at the brain is quite a delight. Playing cards in a specific order becomes the main focus, so it makes your brain fizz slightly. Eventually, you'll start seeing the code and work out how to keep a combo going forever, perhaps achieving an infinite loop with the hefty power of card draw, pulling your entire deck into your hand every 5 cards. This shift means it's no longer a question of whether you can get a combo together, but whether or not the combo is sufficient to kill your enemies. Monsters and bosses transition from damaging you after your turn to attacking you every number of card plays, so you return to managing resources like defense and health, while also slotting in damage. This repeated onslaught from enemies can quickly be your undoing if you're not on top of it. The safety of your own turn is gone and replaced with a relentless assault. The number of enchantments and weapons balloons quickly, skirting the similar issue of survivors, and more importantly the DLCs, of bloat. Variety and different stuff that you can use is great, but there's a lot of duff weapons and enchantments that just get in the way. Every time you level up, you must add a card or maybe an enchantment to your deck, so it keeps things growing larger and ever shifting. But this is undermined by a lot of the options you're presented with not being very good, disincentivizing leveling up as a whole, as progression only acts to clog your deck up with useless gumph. This can become a bit of an issue, or really a non-entity. Eventually, wild cards become readily available. They let you continue a combo on from any number onto the next card of any number. So your combos become infinite, fast. Played cards are also returned to the draw pile, so you're always redrawing everything all the time through the very strong power of empowered card draw. A single card play drawing 40 cards. Combat can become trivial beyond the bosses, so fights are just a routine process of releasing a horde of birds on your foe, but only in a relatively lengthy ritual or, 20 or more card plays. It invokes that feeling of Vampire Survivors where the game becomes fully automated, where you'd step away from the screen to make a sandwich and return and just watch the wall of noise, catching your own reflection in the screen as your eyes have glazed over as you experience something akin to gameplay. But here, well, you can't automate things, really, so you have to play each card individually and manually, which mostly results in you avoiding the gameplay in a different way. You simply just don't fight enemies anymore, because you don't need to. As you stomp around the dungeons, you can choose to engage with bits and not engage in others. Great! But as your card playing goes from this to, well, this, the incentive to do so falls away. It's not to say that the game becomes a chore in the same way that Survivors' DLCs did, but it just feels long. Do you want to sit and play 30 cards to eventually one-shot the encounter with no risk to yourself? It's fun the first few times, it'll take maybe a few minutes to do, but wow, you feel like you've mastered the game. Right, well, now you have to do it again, and again, and again, and again, and oh god, not again. Each floor of the dungeon presents a number of enemies to fight, and initially there's a risk-reward factor. Early on, you want to fight these to level up to get new cards to your deck to hopefully build something that works, whilst also managing your health. Later on, once you have something that not only works, but breaks the game, there's no need to do this. Leveling up doesn't achieve any boon or positive, it just adds more stuff to your deck. The dungeons in Crawlers are much longer than Survivors. Back in the day, you'd be able to maybe get a quick run through the inlaid library before work while you're eating your chocolate cereal. It didn't require all too much input, so you could shovel breakfast into your face and then get ready. But with Crawlers, that one quick run turns into anxiously eyeing the clock, wondering how late you can get away with being because you've already long missed your usual bus and you're still in your pajamas. Make no mistake, that's definitely a testament to how fun this game is. It still has that feeling of curiosity that pulls you back to it as you work through its dungeons. You feel like you could just give it a quick go, just a single flutter of a bat's wing as you play with a new character, and then time disappears. Oh. The thing is, most of that attraction comes from the deck building, the puzzling out the turn order, and the steady corruption of a game's systems to your favour. It doesn't come from the dungeon crawling aspect, which is just a bit weak and naff. Dungeon crawling, yeah! Like Etrian Odyssey, or Legend of Grimrock, or the 3D maze screensaver from old Windows computers. I was more of a tube guy myself, or even the Star one where you could turn up the speed and make it look like you're going into hyperdrive. Yeah! Anyway, Vampire Crawlers invokes these games of yore with the retro polygonal graphics and the bit-crushed audio effects and lines of dialogue from each character.
To your aid, yes!
It's neat! You stomp around the dungeons using the arrows and knock into enemies, lamps, statues, chests and all sorts to interact with them. It's a style of interaction very much at chests will provide upgrades such as gems for your cards or weapon fusions, and the others could provide anything from permanent stat boosts to extra mana, from the fabled wall chicken to some single-use wild cards or special power-ups. But then that's all there is. It's initially fun to seek out every possible lamp to smash, for every possible boon you can get your little hands on, anything to make your vampire crawl, vampire survive longer, but around the same time the combat becomes a bit trivial, so does the dungeon exploration. You are just following this small map in the corner here, and then whoops, this whole bit is gone now. Welcome to the tiny map. I think, for me at least, where Crawlers fall shy of brilliance is in its general lack of secrets. There's nothing quite like that first discovery in Survivors, when you realise the maps aren't just randomly generated, but dedicated maps with items hidden on them in the same spaces. The small hoops you had to jump through to discover increasingly esoteric secrets that slowly built into a meta-narrative about the entire game being a performance that would surprise you with another twist or two, as it felt like the entire game was actively trying to fight you. In Crawlers, you just stomp through some dungeons in order and get what you get. Killing death becomes a fine challenge for the particularly dedicated player, but that genre-shifting and twisting level has been removed. It no longer simmers with a feeling of something experimental. It's just a game now. As a quick counterexample, the Etrian Odyssey games have sprawling dungeons that take no prisoners from the get-go. Exploration and drawing your own map are key, keeping your eyes both here and here. There are secrets hidden down corridors and avenues, and things you can't process until maybe later, or enemies that will absolutely destroy you until a lot later into the game. Things to interact with and items to hunt down and find relating to quests and world building. There's a lot going on just one floor. This is actual dungeon crawling. The dungeon is a literal thing for you to engage in and crawl/explore through. Vampire crawlers may as well be a linear assortment of battles and boons, and some levels are literally that. The bridge levels are actually quite fun, as you feel like you're engaged in this terrible slog, pushing through foes in the tight confines of a narrow bridge, just desperately trying to make your way across. It's weird that the liminal levels are somehow the most evocative of a theme, when the more in-depth levels feel a little flat, despite moving in more than a single direction. This isn't to say that Vampire Crawlers is bad. I still had a delightful time playing it. Digging into its systems at the beginning and coming to master them is still a great experience that gets your brain working. You'll feel compelled to be led deeper into this game, further along its trail of dungeons and bridges, and maybe trying one more run, one more go before bedtime. But then you're knee-deep in a dungeon crawl, anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour remaining, and it's already far too late into the night. You know you have work in the morning, you might just be lost in a fevered haze of a seasonal cold, but still you continue your pursuit of the dreaded vampire, catching snatches of your own sallow reflection in the window as you once more fire 12,000 guns into the enemy. Maybe the vampire was in us all along. Nah, couldn't be. I'm just a normal guy who lives a normal life with a normal aversion to natural light. It's called being a loser gamer that rarely goes outside. You understand. Anyway, Vampire Crawlers was a very fun and punchy experience. It only slightly outstays its welcome in some aspects, as you begin to wonder how many light fixtures do you really need to hit? Do you really need to fight all the enemies? Only in the game's final gasping breaths do you find yourself skipping encounters in an impatient rush, wanting to get something slightly, remotely different. And it does deliver on that at least. Importantly, as this is a stomp across the world, the journey to get to that point is arguably more important and engaging. The process of learning and unpicking the pieces to this game is great. I ultimately dropped around just shy of 17 hours into this game, and it's not actually that expensive either, so there's that as well. So while Vampire Crawlers wasn't the second coming I'd greatly anticipated, it was still fun and a refreshing spin on a genre. Perhaps there's scope in the future for more precise and dedicated dungeons with secrets to find and exploration to entice you with. But in the meantime, I guess it's just making that incredibly large combo and hoping death doesn't get bored of you and just straight up kill you anyway. Hello, and thank you for watching my video. It was all about Vampire Crawlers, which I hope you enjoyed, because I think it's actually quite a fun little game. It's genuinely just like a little nifty puzzle to play around with and get lost into, and doesn't massively outstay its welcome. There's nothing wholly encompassing like in Vampire Survivors. Also, I lightly burnt my thumb whilst trying to find a way to light these candles, because not only was I jamming them into my oven, jamming them at my electric hob, and eventually remembering that I do actually own a lighter, I then jammed my thumb into the flame like a perfectly normal, sensible person who's not a vampire. Anyway, if you have any thoughts about Vampire Crawlers, let me know. If you, like me, think that the dungeon crawling could have had a little bit more to it, or what your ideas and thoughts about the game were, let me know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, you can click up here for a game video about video games, specifically climbing in video games. This was a really fun video that I really enjoyed, and it's something I really care about because I climb all the time. So check it out. I look at climbing in video games and a bunch of games that have climbing in them. Then down here is a indie game, it's a board game review about Flamme Rouge, which is a delightful little bicycling race game, which is just a delight to play, very fun, very silly. Otherwise, you can click on my face orb to subscribe on my face. And thank you, and good blood sucking!